you, everybody, for joining another episode of the She Rises Studios podcast. My name is Adriana Luna Carlos, and I'm here with...
I'm Hanna Olivas.
Hanna Olivas here. You're the CEO and founder of She Rises Studios, the great and wonderful Hanna Olivas. I'm just kidding. So today I really want to talk about something that's kind of been on everyone's mind, but we don't know how to talk about it. So there's like a lot of weight that's been kind of going around in the world. We don't really dive into politics here or religion or anything that's going to bring a division into the world. But we do have to talk about what emotions are coming from it, what's kind of happening in the world. So are you ready to get a little bit deep today?
Sure.
Okay. Let's talk about some emotional truth telling. Without, again, getting into specifics of who, what, when, where. Everyone's kind of feeling something lately, like uncertainty or anger or even disconnection. Some individuals feel a divide. What emotions do you notice a lot lately, whether you're talking to someone online, in person, viewing comments on social media posts? What kind of emotions have you been seeing lately?
Oh, I've seen so much anger, especially like with social media. Seeing women who once collaborated now are just tearing each other apart. And I think it comes from fear.
A lot of things do.
I think that they're afraid of the unknown. We're in, some times where we've never seen things like what's happening occur in our lifetime. And so I think it all really honestly started when the pandemic hit. And I don't think anyone's fully recovered from what life looks like prior to pandemic. So I feel like there's like this somber heaviness and a lot of anger.
So what do you think, what have you been doing within these conversations because you talk to a lot of people every single day, probably at least 20, if I had to guess, which maybe doesn't sound like a big number, but it is when it's exhausting.
I always make sure, one, I don't have those kinds of conversations about politics or things because to me, it's a personal choice, our beliefs, perspectives, and things. And so I use my journal a lot to kind of fill in what I can't say because you don't want to insult someone else. You don't want to, you just never know. You could say one thing and next thing, the whole world is mad at you. So I always tell them, we're going to talk about ways to uplift, ways to empower, ways to educate, whatever the scenario is, there's always an answer. So I try not to get involved. And when I see it on social media, I don't comment. And if it gets to be too bad, I just remove myself. I just don't want to be a part. I don't want to add fire. There's already a big one out there. And so I've kind of just learned to, and I do have opinions and obviously I want to say things, but there's a time and a place for it.
So what about, I feel like some of that can cause part of what we feel these days is disconnection, like when we can't talk about it though. So as much as journaling is definitely an outlet and a healthy one, sometimes we do need to talk about it. So if you feel like, this person seems receptive to having a conversation without it being overly either political or something that's, divisive. And how do you kind of like build that comfort to let someone know, hey, I'm here to listen. I know I'm giving you a tough question on this. It's hard because you kind of said the opposite. But I think it's a healthy thing to be able to talk without feeling like you're going to be attacked. So what do you kind of do when you're in that position to where someone's kind of open and maybe not pressing, but like having that comfortable conversation with you?
I just, I honestly pick and choose who I have those conversations with. I mean, obviously my husband is one because we can have a healthy banter and still go to bed and not, like carried into the next day and the next day and the next day. But not everyone can do that. So it's kind of, he's definitely someone that I can talk to and share my perspective and ask questions to because, as you know, I work a lot. And so I don't always find out the breaking news per se when it's happening, because I'm in, the She Rises universe. So in She Rises universe, everything is amazing and powerful and uplifting and empowering, and it's all goodness. And I think I'd rather stay there sometimes. But, don't get me wrong. I feel things and I think things, and there's things that I don't agree with at all, And so what I've learned to do over the years is if you want to see a change, you have to be a change maker. And that's what I would encourage anyone. All this fighting and all this negativity that we see every day, that energy could be used to make the change. Instead of talking about it, just be about it, do something about it. And that's what I do.
I love it. I think another big thing is leading with compassion, not going into a conversation already headstrong into an opinion.
Yeah.
Best thing you can do is listen to what someone has to say and then receive the parts that make sense, the connection part, right? So we all, in some way, shape, or form, can have agreements equally as much as we can have disagreements, right? So if we can find where we're common, where we can agree, and we can find that common ground, I think that's where it kind of starts, finding the humility in conversations again, instead of being in opposition all the time, because it feels like that lately, a lot of opposition.
Yeah, there's so much division. So if we can, have more compassion and empathy and more listening, I feel like communication has changed too. Everyone wants to speak, but no one wants to listen. But if you listen, you'll hear more of what really is happening. It's like the same thing we tell our clients all the time. They're asking us, well, how do we get people to see us? How do we get people to know us? You listen, you watch what people want, and they'll tell you. They don't even have to speak it. Their actions show you what they're looking for.
Oh, yeah. So there's, if there's like something you had to stop doing, do you feel like there's something you've had to stop consuming, whether it's social media? Is there something like you completely stopped doing, or that you've noticed over time you've stopped doing or pulled away from?
Yeah, I stopped watching the news. One, because it was just so horrifying to see everything that's going on. And then, I don't spend as much time on Facebook or in particular that platform. In fact, I've kind of veered over to LinkedIn because that's where I see the change coming. I see people, advocating and sharing their voice for amazing causes, because there's so much that is happening out there, and it's being really drowned out by all of this animosity and anger that we're hearing about day to day. There's very important issues that are being covered, and I don't want to say it's intentional. I think just everyone's focus is on, what's going to happen with the world, really, honestly. So I try to look for things that are ways that we can really make a change, that it's something that I could do. Even if it's one small step, at least I know that I'm going in the right direction. And that's kind of what I try to tell everybody else. I try to stay away from the drama, because we just, we don't have time for that.
And what if we switch the way we look at something? Because right now we can think we're angry at the world, we're angry at each other, right? But what if we're just exhausted by it all?
Oh, everything. I think for sure that.
Yeah. So like changing perspectives within ourselves, so that way we can lead better in our day-to-day, because we kind of walk around already carrying so much into the day that's kind of the same energy you get back. So basically I'm saying let's switch the mindset a little bit, and instead of saying I'm feeling angry, how about we give ourselves a break and we say there's a lot going on, and we find a new way to look at that day, and just one day at a time. It makes a world of a difference.
Every day I get up and the first thing I say is thank you for another day. That's been something, and more frequently, thank you. Like, I'm like, thanks, dude. Because there's, if we really look around, there's so much incredible and amazing things out there. It's just, it's perspective, it's opinion, and everyone wants to get one. So I think, yes, if we, I like you're saying, well, I'm going to put a pin in it. So put a pin in it, take a break from it. And when you are ready to have that conversation or whatever that is, then come back to it. But obviously we've learned one thing, right? Over the last few years, what does anger get?
I think it creates standstill.
Yeah. And that's where we are.
Yeah.
So if there's more empathy and more compassion, more understanding, kindness, I always say the world needs a big hug. We all do, right? So if everyone took that one little step, that one little act of kindness and listened more than they spoke, imagine what it would look like.
That actually leads me into my next point, reclaiming hope and humanity. So we touched on it a little bit, but we can get a little bit deeper. What would you say is or how would you say creativity and storytelling can kind of help heal us all?
Well, for sure, I mentioned earlier journaling, and I know everyone says, oh, I journal, but it is such a therapeutic time, especially, we want to be able to communicate our feelings, right? And oftentimes we don't know how to say it in words, but we can write it out. I do this with my husband all the time. When I'm mad, I text him, because if I try and speak it and say, it turns into this shouting thing, and I don't like to shout. So I've learned okay, words are powerful. Even if it's with a pen, it's powerful. So I feel like it's therapeutic, and I think that it is definitely a resource that everyone has. And I would encourage more people to pick up a pen and write and share their stories, share their thoughts, and utilize their emotions for intelligence.
Yeah, we all need that a little bit more emotional intelligence and what that means, what it actually means, not just because everybody has these buzzwords that they use all the time. And we start to say it so much that they lose the meaning. So get back to the roots of what it means to be emotionally intelligent. And to me, that means reading the room, listening to what we're saying, how we're composing ourselves. And as much as it's ourselves, learning how to read the person you're with, right? For you, for instance, when I talk to you, I kind of know if you're feeling nervous or if you're feeling confident. Because over time, I've learned to read your expressions or mannerisms or movements. So if we can be more emotionally intelligent, it does help us feel more connected and brings that humility piece back into place, because we're all human at the end of the day. We all feel.
Yes.
And it's a lot. We can't keep overlooking and being selfish and only worrying about how we feel, because that does kind of also cause
it does.
a ripple effect.
It does. I think when we only focus on ourselves, we're missing everything else, And if you're willing to look outside of your own opinion and perspective, and again, listen to what the other person is saying, maybe you won't be so reactive. I always say, okay, how can we be proactive about this? It goes back to the change. What things can we do to change? If we don't like what we see, if we don't like what we hear, if we don't like what we experience, what can we do? We can personally make those changes. So you asked me the question, what do I do to kind of drown out the noise? I exit one of the platforms, and I only go on there if I absolutely have to, right? I stay away from stuff like that. You don't insert yourself. Just because someone goes on and puts a rant or someone goes on a rant doesn't mean that you have to be a part of that. You can take the high road. You don't always have to get involved and react. We're all in react mode a lot of the times now.
And I'll say just to the other side too. So for individuals who don't want to stay disconnected from the news, because I've kind of been where we're kind of like going opposite sometimes. So there was a time period I would say that you watched the news a lot, and I was really disconnected. And then it started to be the opposite, and I started to watch more. And it's just different for every person and how you can process, because we all go through phases throughout the years. And sometimes we're better at coping with stuff, and sometimes it helps us more. So it really just depends on where you're at within your own mindset. So if you are someone who is watching the news all of the time and you feel like it's actually helping you to stay grounded because you have a different coping mechanism or whatever that may be, for me, it helps me feel like I'm staying in the know, and that brings me comfort just so I can be well informed. But it's gone both ways. So I just want to, for anyone who's feeling like, well, I don't necessarily disconnect. That doesn't mean that we can't still practice the same steps that we talked about today.
I mean, I watch the news, and obviously I try to stay in the know, but it's repetitive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's like you can literally spend, 10 minutes of your day and pretty much get the summary.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just the back and forth. It's repetitive. And it's almost like they're feeding the fire. They want to get the reaction and the reaction and the reaction. Mm-hmm. But I never hear the change, the way to change things so that we don't have to experience the things that we do. I don't hear the solution. Mm-hmm. So then I hear what's going on each day. And I look for more of the feel goods too. Human interest, like who's doing what in the community, who's helping. There's so many amazing causes out there that are just being overlooked because of all of this anger that's happening. So I think that I would just say this, choose wisely what you're watching. And
there you go. That's how I would say it too. Yeah, because I think
choose wisely.
I think a lot of the solutions are actually coming from more like what we're doing, podcasts or YouTube channels or individuals who are using those social media platforms for good.
Yeah.
So it's out there. I think it's just maybe not necessarily always in the mainstream media as prevalent as it should be. So
yeah, we should talk about mainstream media one day because, I'll just say this when it comes to mainstream media. It's very controlled. And what do people not want to be? Controlled. So you're seeing this shift of mainstream media not even being able to be controlled anymore, and people are taking it into their own hands like we do.
Yep.
So we built platforms. We have all these things that we do because we want women to be able to share their voice. We don't encourage, obviously, the nastiness and anger side, right? We provide solution. So I think mainstream media is seeing this big shift of people saying, if you're not going to share the other stuff, the stuff that we're also interested in, then we're going to create our own platforms. And you're seeing that on the daily now, which I think is really awesome.
Well, I think this has kind of been an awesome podcast in the sense of like talking about it, but without going in too deep, too political, but we needed to touch on this. And we might even go deeper on in future podcasts because it's really a big shift right now. But the biggest message from this is, lead with compassion, lead with empathy, and, think about put yourself in the other person's shoes a little bit more. Try it a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's hard. It really is.
But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. And it's uncomfortable at first, but just like anything, you build, the muscle from it. And the more you practice it, the better you're going to get. So
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for watching this episode on the She Rises Studios podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining another episode of She Rises Studios podcast. Please follow us online at She Rises Studios. You can also visit our website at www.sherisesstudios.com.